Welcome to episode number 13 of Life Lean In. We've got some incredible guests today. Of course, my beautiful wife, who is always the best guest, as I call her.
But thank you.
And then we've got head coach of Western Michigan's football team and his lovely wife, Dawn, Tim and Dawn Lester.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
excited to be
Thank
here.
you.
Welcome. Well, here's the deal. We just want to lean in. The thing about this podcast is we want people to understand that they're not perfect, but we can always grow. We can always learn. We can get better. We can challenge each other. We can learn how to do life in a better facet. And as a coach and as someone who loves football myself, I can't think of my childhood was all about like getting better and disciplines and reaching goals, and we're gonna win, right? Yeah. So man, you guys were the first people I thought of to try to bring on to this podcast.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, for obvious reasons.
You grew up
Thank
in
you.
a
We hope we live up to it.
Yeah. I mean, you just, the athletic locker room is such a unique place.
Yes.
You know, because there's individual goals and there's team goals, and it's such a microcosm of life.
Everything.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. And you learn, it's great to learn on a small scale before you get thrust into
Absolutely.
the world.
Absolutely. And we talk about, I mean, obviously leading an organization, there's so many things I go back to in playing football and learning through sports. Mm-hmm. It's just incredible. But let's dive in, like 2020. Let's just dive right into the nitty gritty, right?
Oh.
2020 has been probably the greatest leadership challenging year ever, with families, parents, coaches,
Trying to play.
navigating,
Yeah.
trying to play, like, and you faced the shutdowns, and you were playing, you weren't playing. How did you navigate that? And then you also, in the midst of it, like I as a church leader, we navigated the racial unrest. Yeah. We navigated a lot of things that are happening, and I know that happens in the locker room. You got to address it. Mm-hmm. You have players of all different backgrounds, and all I've learned this year is, as a leader, is, and I think this is probably true of all leaders, we don't know what we're doing.
Oh, all right, wait 5 minutes and everything's going to change again.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of our calls.
So how did you handle this? How did the players handle this?
Through the season, they did an unbelievable job. I mean, the proof is in the very limited positives. We didn't lose any games, but the challenge was, and I think the challenge in leadership in general is to be bluntly honest. Mm-hmm. I mean, to let them in on what's going on and the decisions you're making. And I mean, you and I played when it was, you do it because coach told you to,
right?
Because I said so. Some of us still use that with
Yeah.
I mean, I get angry and I'm reacting instead of responding, and I'll be like with one of my boys, like, because I said so, which is not a good answer.
Yeah.
But you want to do it. You want to let them know why you're making the decision you're making. That it's probably going to change in 5 minutes.
Sure.
But this is what we're going to do now. Here's our plan. We all in. Okay, we're in. Let's go. Because it changed. We were on. We were off. We were testing 3 times a week, then 4 times a week, then 6 times a week, and they were going super deep into the brain. And then science told us they were only going to go halfway there, which was a big victory when that happened. So we talked through all of it.
Yeah.
When whatever. But that was probably the biggest one when the science came in that they didn't have to go. There's a word for it.
They didn't
They didn't have to scratch your brain.
hit the back of the
They don't
head.
have to
right?
scratch
Yeah.
your brain anymore. Yeah. We were going 6 times a week, and having them be able to control that is. But I think the honesty is the best part. You know, is just telling them and. Some people say don't tell them what they need to know, and I just think we are in a world of information. They can pick their phone up,
which is totally different than how we grew up.
We didn't even know what was going on.
If you're not telling them, someone else is.
Someone is. They're going to read it from Twitter.
Yes.
So we talked a ton, obviously through all the social unrest, and the communication I think was key, and I think that's. It broke some programs like guys were still going out socially, and those teams got games canceled.
Right.
So if you were doing things right leading into it, it was definitely a trying and challenging year, but our guys responded. But it was definitely different and more winds and turns, but as long as you acknowledge that they're happening, then you're ready for them when they happen.
Absolutely.
You know?
How do you do that as a family?
3 boys.
I stay in my lane. I'm like, you got the coaching thing. I've got these 3 boys.
Yeah.
And
You're a coach yourself.
right, I guess.
Yeah,
of
you got those
sorts.
3 boys.
Of sorts. Yeah.
The pandemic, I think, was really unique to be home so much.
Yeah,
For
just
us.
gave us a chance to stop and be together, which we don't really have that luxury.
No.
I
Yeah.
mean, we don't have Dad comes home at 5 o'clock and we have dinner every night. That just doesn't. We have organized dinners throughout the season.
Right.
Monday nights are family dinner night. That's the only night the kids get to have dinner with their dad. So recently, it's a funny story. So for the year, Tim's been around, and we've been able to, come to practices and have dinner together and all of that, nice family time. And the other day he wasn't home because he's sort of back at it now.
Yep.
And my middle guy, Carter, said, "Dad, where's Dad?" And I said, "Well, he's working." He goes, "But it's a school night." Why is he
gotten
here?
used to it,
And
yeah.
I said, "You guys have all gotten used to him being home, and they're young, so they don't really understand that." But yeah, so it was kind of the silver lining was definitely having that family time and slowing down a little bit.
Well, how awesome is it that you do take, even when it's a normal season, and it's like, okay, Monday's my day or my night. Is that typically a day off for the team?
No, I just bring we adjust our schedule so all the families come to the stadium because we're going to work till 11 or 12.
Yep.
So we have a big plates of food brought in.
Yep.
We work all day Sunday. Sunday's kind of our busiest day of the week. And I think it's like 5:30. The family, you can hear the kids, you can hear the running in the building. You hear the feet, and you're like, okay, families are starting to arrive.
I love that.
So we break meetings. My big thing is we've had it at other places where we all sit in a cafeteria and eat. I'm selfish this way. I want to be in my office with my children, like we're sitting around at the table and say, "How was school today?" So I kind of make all the coaches take your kids into your rooms for the first half hour.
Yep.
And ask them how their day was, and ask them what they learned, and then the kids start playing, and then it's chaos for the other half hour. So it's half hour.
Like 10 minutes
They try
after,
to eat
or
really
it's
fast
a half
because they can
hour.
go play with their buddies.
Yes,
on the
we
field
have
or
impressive.
wherever.
We have one coach that like if you bring him an empty plate, he has candy for each kid every
right.
time, and then it becomes mayhem. They all end up on the field, and it's a great hour and a half on Monday nights, and then we normally. Either the family or just us two on Thursday nights is normally. The problem is we play on Tuesdays, Wednesdays. Like
Yeah.
our
Right.
Thursday
That
nights
changes.
never.
It changes.
Like we
couple
go
of
across the street.
Thursdays,
That's our
but
place right there across the
Right.
street. We go and we eat on Thursday night, and we always, if we won, we try to make sure we get the same waitress again. But then we play on a Tuesday, so Thursday is like Sunday, and it gets all
you
messed
gotta
up. So
order
those are
right-
kind of the
same
two.
thing each
Yeah, we
week.
order the same thing if we won.
Yeah, I think the idea though, we often talk about how do we keep it so that our kids don't resent the church.
Yeah.
Because that's where we spend most of our time. And so how do we keep them having a passion for it and hearing what you're saying? Probably the same thing. Like, how do you keep it so that they love football and they appreciate the job you have and don't resent it for it keeping you away? And I think so much of that is the idea of letting them into it and having them be a part. And
You can't separate.
Agreed.
them.
Right.
There's just.
Right. They're as much a part of our football
Yes.
program.
Yeah, I love
they go in
that.
the locker room. They see guys on their last game crying. They see the cheers. They see that the fight song.
Yeah.
They're part of it, and I think they feel that.
I think as we did a podcast early on about the myth of work-life balance, and really like when you think about that, your priorities in life. They're not going to be fully balanced. Like if you think your family is this much of your priority, then you're kind of missing it. Like even if you're spending this amount of time at work, there's no balance there. They're not equal in time spent, but you have to make it a priority, like she said, so they don't resent it, and so you just have to create those avenues. And being around football, I think I've watched Urban Meyer kind of create those types of cultures.
Yep.
He
He does an unbelievable job.
Is so much around and welcome. And I know when I was at Texas, we had many times where our families were just we all came together, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Culturally.
And I mean, even when we were buying our house, it was which one can have the team over.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like we had this the first
Right.
time. I've always had to buy a house that could have the quarterbacks over, which is like 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I became an offensive
bigger house,
coordinator, and I was
bigger family
thinking
room.
50.
Right,
you know?
right.
And now I'm thinking
Yeah.
110.
Yeah.
So it was,
Wow.
Indian Trails bus pull up.
yeah, we've had the bus pull
That's
through
amazing.
Barrington Shores, and so
Wow,
we put the
100
whole
people.
backyard in so they could all come over and
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
diving board competitions, and it's
Love
and
it.
and they play hoops, and the boys think it's the greatest thing ever because they throw them around the pool.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it's a really, you really have to set it up that way. One of the things that I think we do that's really unique, just to make it clear that that time is important, is the one thing you learn about public school and universities is they don't have the same spring break. So I've been in a lot of places where I'm off on spring break and it's awesome. I get to get up and put them on the bus and then I sit around all day.
Right.
Yeah.
So I give my coaches off the week of their kids' spring break. That is
great.
your
That's
spring. We'll work
awesome.
during our spring break, and we work all the time anyway. So it's actually so the Western Michigan spring break isn't necessarily my coaches'
Your break.
work. We
Right.
work. We're on break when our kids are on break, and it's fun when new coaches come in because they're like, wait a minute. So we have a week like my kids are off. I'm off. Like yes, find
our
a
kids.
beach and go
Yeah.
there.
That's fantastic.
And-
That's amazing.
And we did that. One coach did that. So when I got the job, that was the first thing we were doing. And we've had some really fun family. Like that's our week, that
Right.
we get to go and I tell everyone, find the time, go, have fun.
That's
And
amazing.
it's a fun week.
That's
Nice way to
fantastic.
reconnect.
Yeah.
We also try to, take the players outside of the field and take them into our homes and learn more about them. And as the thing, so many things happen during the year. You're in college, and just kind of get to know them. They get to know our family
Yeah.
and our kids, and we try to celebrate everybody's birthday on the team, and so we divide out all the players.
110
by
birthdays.
There's a
Yeah,
lot.
and each wife
a lot
takes,
of cookies,
you
a lot
know,
of cakes.
So a third of the year you're celebrating
We're celebrating birthdays.
That's awesome.
We do Halloween, treat bags.
Yeah.
And the kids all dress up, and then they bring the players all, a treat bag. So we try
awesome.
to
They're really big kids.
create
Yeah,
a big
they're still
family.
kids. They're
yeah.
big.
Aren't we all?
Absolutely.
Because they're just, they're in college. So, and this is, for many of them,
Yeah. Well, and I think I have a question off of that. What would you say, outside of obviously winning a football game, winning the season, winning this,
A championship.
a championship? Thank you. What counts as your biggest win as a leader? How do you feel like
How do I
you've
measure?
won?
Yeah, I think I measure by their growth. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what. I mean, I've thought about coaching professionally before. I love the 18 to 20. How much did everyone grow when you were 18 to 22?
yeah.
How much
The
good
most.
and bad
Yeah.
decisions did you make when you
Right.
were 18 to
You learn
22?
so much.
And watching a guy leave, and now we're going to their weddings and be fathers and be successful in their businesses, and like think of all your success and how you go back to what you learned during it. It's such a cool thing to be a part of. Like that is
Yeah.
the best part. Now we are judged publicly by winning that year, and that's hard. And you have to balance those because we
Right.
have to win, or I don't get to do this anymore.
Right.
But the real winning, without question, is in the growth. And I think that's the biggest thing is from point A to point B. Everyone always says recruiting's the lifeblood of a program, and I don't believe that. I believe the development and the growth is. Now, recruiting second, but
Yeah.
but when you get here, what can we do for you physically, spiritually, emotionally? Like how can we get you from point A to point
Right.
B? And there's going to be, the road to success is not a straight line. I mean, it is the curvy,
Total
most
zigzag,
windingest
yep.
road ever. But that's the win,
Yeah.
personally. But like I said, publicly, it's on a scoreboard.
Yep.
And it's fun to go out there and compete with those guys because we learn a ton. We learn a ton with that.
Yeah.
Like when you're on national television and stakes are high and you go through negative things, like it's a bonding moment.
Right.
You go through
Yeah.
the highs, we call it shared adversity. You talk about people that go through boot camp together.
Right.
Like they are like this for life. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Lou Holtz was in town, was it last fall, 2 falls ago? And all he wanted to know when I met him, I wanted to talk to him about, you're Hall of Fame coach, you've won national. I mean, I want to ask him all these questions. And all he asked us was a guy that he went through boot camp with, played here, and he's trying to get a hold of him, and he doesn't know if he's still alive, and and I wrote the name down. I'm still trying to find the guy. I'm like looking through, like that was the first question you want to know. A guy I went through boot camp with, went to school here, played here. Can you help me try to find him?
Yeah.
And then I started asking him all these football questions.
Isn't that the truth though? Like if it stops being about people, then I think the passion goes away. And I love what you're saying about we celebrate birthdays, like the kids, they get to play with these guys, and we face that even in a church aspect of like success. Publicly is measured by what we say like butts in the seats.
Yeah.
But then you also look at like the leadership development programs of like, but are we taking the time to pour into the people that God has given us for this season?
Yeah.
And measuring that growth. And and I always think like when it stops being about the people and it starts being about the systems, that's when you've lost what you're doing.
100%.
And
And you have
the
to- and you have
passion will
to have
die
both.
out. Yeah.
You have to have both. You got to go to work every single day and do it for the development piece. But the thing that I remember the most playing for Coach Mac Brown, like they always called him a player's coach.
He's the best.
But you also knew like he was running the entire the coaching staff was getting an earful.
Oh yeah.
When the players were getting the pat on the back, so you can get it next time.
Yeah.
Big fella,
Yeah.
And so it's all important. It's all development. But to your point with I'll never forget the day before I moved to Michigan, we were at an alumni event, and it was a practice, and we were walking out of the Texas Tunnel together, and I said, I asked him, leader to leader, which we're not on the same level at all, obviously, but I just said, leader to leader, you talk to people who have billions and billions of dollars, and you're getting them to support your program and your mission and what we're doing, and then you can go into a recruit's house who maybe has a single mom who's working 4 jobs just to keep their kids, fed. And how do you go into their worlds and speak into their lives and have influence and positively impact their lives? And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Dan, people are people.
Mm-hmm.
People are people.
Yep.
And you're in the people business.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the people business. And it's development of young men. It's development of people. And so you go to work every day trying to help them to grow.
Yeah.
That's what this is all about. And so I guess, what is it, on a day-to-day basis, you can share as much or little as you want, but on a day-to-day basis, to develop a team and to develop your coaches, what does that look like? If you go home
What's your
at
daily
midnight
discipline?
Yeah.
each day, you can go, today we won.
We want. It's a good question. I would say that daily, I think a lot of it is because you make decisions every day.
Yeah.
And these kids are not immune to making bad decisions. In
Correct.
fact, I think they're prone to sometimes to make.
I was a college student.
Yes, who
I
wasn't?
made all of them. Yes.
So
All the bad
The big
decisions.
thing we are on right now is I'm trying to teach them, and obviously everything I teach them, I'm teaching myself. We're always
I love
constantly
that.
learning. Is the difference between responding and reacting. Okay, reacting is below the line. Reacting is emotional. It is an action that you take. I mean, you got punched in the face and you want to punch somebody back. That is a reaction.
Right.
You will be held responsible for all those. And then there's responding, which is calculated. It's mature. It's mission based. You can see the big picture. You have perspective. And these kids have to respond. They have to learn to respond to. We all have been thrown a lot in 2020 and 2021. And there's people reacting all over. Turn Twitter on. There's reaction everywhere.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so just trying to continue to ask them questions about what are the conflicts in their life and how can we help them. A lot of them have conflict at home. As you know, it's one of the very unique things of a college locker room is I still to this day say, how many of you guys will be the first person in your family to graduate from college? And
Right.
about 70% of them raise their hand.
Yeah.
And they're going to break the cycle for their family, because then the chances of their kids going to, I mean, it's happening in every locker room, not just ours.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's one of the really cool things, but I think just trying to continue to teach them. We talk about responding and the having thought, like turn the brain on.
Listening instead of just talking. I feel like everybody's just talking. We just live in a society where everybody just wants to say what they have to say,
Right.
what
Yeah.
they think, and people just need to stop for a minute and listen.
Yeah.
Listen to what what
Sometimes
your
the
neighbor has
response
to
is
say. Listen to what
nothing.
your teammate has
Yeah.
to say.
Sometimes saying
Right.
nothing is a win. Because if you say something right there, it's going to come back at you, you know. And so we're trying to just constantly, and I try to work the building, you know, because I could get caught up in my office real quick. So I literally have times where I walk because I want to talk to everybody, and I like to talk. I talk a lot, you know. I like having conversations. So I think that, and I think the biggest thing on a daily is I think it's a mindset. You know, we've talked about it. You know, you have a choice whether you feel like everything you have in your world is you either have to do it or you get to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm a big, I get to do these
Absolutely,
things.
that's
Yeah.
great.
And so it's a mindset of when you get up and walk into the building, if I'm like, oh my God, it's dark out, it's cold out, it's this week, it's minus whatever out there, you get to choose your perspective on that. And you really I get to be here with you today. And
Absolutely.
last night, literally, I got home I picked up 2 of the boys. She was at soccer practice. I rolled in. Hockey practice, soccer.
I was like,
I don't know where soccer came from, but hockey. Maybe I'm thinking
Again,
about
I
soccer.
stay in my lane. Yes. My lane.
So I got home. The boys are going crazy, and I looked, and I always bring this up. Like, I mean, there was a couple dishes in the sink, and I don't know whose they were, but I get to clean those dishes.
Yeah.
I don't have to. I get to. And so, I mean, it's just a mindset of trying to.
Kelsey's hoping I'm picking this up.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, is he
I
listening?
literally last night while cleaning this
There
dishes.
were like 2 dishes in there. We had already cleaned.
There's only
We
two.
were
There's only
coming in
two.
hot.
But
to
I was like,
wings
should I
west.
do that? And I was like,
Yep.
I get to do that. I'm lucky enough to have this opportunity, and to have dishes and to have a house. Like
Yeah.
I get to clean it. I literally thought maybe we should get a small house because then I'll get to do less. I thought about that last night. I literally thought, as I'm cleaning, I'm like, if we had a smaller house, we had less stuff. We have less to do.
Well,
But
we could definitely
You have
say
to
that
have a
less
smaller
stuff, right?
team then.
I know, because
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's just that
But it
mindset
is,
of.
it's definitely a mindset.
I want the guys to understand they get to come and be trained. Right now we're in training, you know, because they just need to be reminded, you know, because
Yeah.
if not, you will fall into this, you know,
Woe
this
is me.
negativity everywhere.
Right.
And if you can take your time to respond to everything around you and find a way to understand how lucky you are.
Sure.
And I think you'll have a positive attitude, and that is contagious.
Yeah,
I mean,
no doubt.
Yeah.
people can feel when you have a positive mindset.
Yep.
You know, and I think it's really hard to be a positive person and not be a leader.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a positive person that's making people happy around you, people will want to follow you.
That's
hard to
so
If you
true.
notice the other side is quickly, people will follow that too.
Oh,
The
it is.
negative.
Yes.
And they sort of kind of go their way. But if you just try to, you know, it's very
Yeah.
hard to argue with somebody who's trying to stay positive.
Well, and
It
you know,
just
Dan
is.
always says all leadership is influence,
Yes,
and people
same.
want to be influenced by positivity.
Right.
You know, in general,
want
if they're drawn to it,
Yep.
of there's something different because we don't have a lot of that right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said the thing that popped in my head is so I was obviously as a pastor of a church, really the problem with the church and the world today is that the church, it seems like people think that all the church does is judge the outside. Like they're judging everyone on the outside of the church, where really we help people grow inside the church. We challenge just like on a team.
Yep.
We want to help them to grow and to develop and to be better people. And so the judgment or maybe the growth that you're trying to build is inside the church. It's not outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Like and
Those
the
people are
church has
there.
kind of flipped it backwards, and it's like we want to reach everyone in our city, and it happens by being a life-giving place that people can come and embrace, and they can grow, and they like it. But it's not like this wall of judgment of like you're not measuring up yet or whatever, and that's not what we do. Speaking of that, and this might be one of the last questions. Well, I have 2 questions. How do you navigate the outside voices?
Ooh,
So you were
good
talking
one.
about like, you know, you do have to win, right?
Yeah, you have to.
At the end of the day,
100%.
if you want to keep your job,
Yeah.
you got to win games. But you've got, and any leader does.
Yeah.
You've got fans that are critiquing you. You've got the media that are critiquing you. You've got all these voices telling you how you're doing your job. How do you pay attention to the right voices?
So I've been very fortunate to have great mentors.
Yeah.
And have been Mac Brown. You know, we got to meet him at at a golf tournament at Pebble Beach and got to hang out and ask him questions one time. It was a really cool,
He's an awesome
it was
guy.
unbelievable thing. But I got connected with Dabo Sweeney.
Yeah.
And I met an announcer who said, "Man, you remind me of him." I'm like, "Well, he's my favorite." So
That's awesome.
don't tell him that. But after the game, the announcer gave me his cell phone number and said, "I talked to Coach Sweeney. He'd love to talk to you." And then I flew down there and spent 4 days down there. And so having people to lean on that have done it the right way, in my opinion. His saying is, I'm not going to let their dirty feet in my brain. Or so I was asking him about how do you deal with this, And he's like, there's a guy sitting in his mom's basement in his underwear eating Cheetos, and I'm not and Cheetos
vlogging,
and then later on
right.
he called it Doritos, and so I as a joke I'm like, is it Doritos the guy's eating or Cheetos? He goes, it doesn't really matter.
That's not the point.
But he's like, I'm not going to let, and so it's once again, it's the response.
Right.
I am going to respond to those things and say, does that help me grow these players?
Yeah, right.
And if the answer is no, then I ignore it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I can react to that real easily because all your emotions are going to kick in, whether you agree with it, disagree with it, whether you want to use excuses, and I still think I go back to I respond to it. I look at it. If it does not help me grow our players or win a game next year, then I don't make mind space for it. And that's hard to do. But I think the more you learn to have calculated responses to things and take things in and think about them and say, does this really, because it's in the world right now, like we talked about Twitter, a lot of that stuff's on Twitter, which is the most reactionary. I mean, people are
have Facebook accounts and stuff, but they run it.
Oh,
So
yes.
I don't even see
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
So if you're trying to get a hold of me on Facebook and whatnot, I don't.
You're not the person.
Our
behind
team is
it.
doing it because of, but
Yeah.
you,
But also
you
have
kind
to
of.
remember that this is entertainment to
Sure.
most
To a
people.
lot
Yeah,
of people.
for sure.
Yeah.
This is not their livelihood.
Right.
This is
Correct.
not the working till midnight
Yep.
and up and
There's
and
no
kids,
blood, sweat, and tears.
You're 100 kids,
Out of them.
100 kids that have 100 different problems and where they've come from and all of these different things and what you're trying to accomplish with them. It's like separating the fact that to the outside public, this is entertainment. So they
Correct.
feel like they have an opinion.
Right.
But the real life stuff, it's so beautiful what's happening inside.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of our best players last year, he said, Mrs. Lester, I didn't know the value of my college education. Nobody went to college,
Sure.
where I'm from, and until I got hurt. And then I realized, wow, I'm going to get a college education. I mean, this is incredible.
That's
And then
awesome.
he wound up, having another year and doing phenomenal. But we have to just sort of in our minds remember that it's entertainment. We have to separate the fact that it's entertainment to other people, but there's something bigger happening.
And
No
those
doubt.
those are
the walls.
wins. I literally had a young man yesterday come to my office and I gave him the biggest hug ever because he came in, loved this kid, Chappie, and he was going to be a great one. And then he collapsed and he has a heart issue. We found out 3 years ago. And he loved football more than any human being. Like in the winter, tackling dummies in his backyard, like way into it.
Yeah.
And they told him he could never play again. And he wanted to become a doctor, and just stayed with the team. Was a coach. He's been our signaler for 3 years. He got into he got into the school he needed to get into. It's connected to the Cleveland Clinic. He was leaving yesterday to go become a doctor.
That's amazing.
And he came. He stopped by just to say bye and thank you. And this was not the path he thought that he was on when he came here, but he had faith and he trusted in the process, and he talked and listened to people, and now he's gonna go. He already said his white coat, like it's next May, his white coat ceremony. He already knows when his white coat ceremony is, and it's like
awesome.
it was an awesome thing to
awesome.
wish him luck. And I'm like, you got to come back. I mean, he's
is
like,
so
I'll be
cool.
back, coach. I'll be watching. And
Yeah.
I've always said I would love there to be some kind of a great like ESPN documentary on the kids who are playing football or any sport for that matter, but the stories that we've heard, the kids that we've learned, that we've met and have become part of our family along the way. Not the kids that are making it to the NFL, which those are great stories too.
For sure.
It's the kids who they have a life because
Right.
they've got a college education, and they've had this incredible bonding opportunity, and they've grown so much. and they pay it forward.
Yeah.
And it's just so rewarding. And there's so many great stories about, you know, somebody who became a realtor, or somebody became a doctor, or somebody, you know, owns their own business, or whatever the case is. There's just so many incredible stories behind these kids. And as a mom, you know, I kind of sit on, you know, in the stands, and I hear, you know, people yelling, "Oh, you didn't catch the ball." It's like, you had no idea where this kid's come from, what happened last night. You don't have any idea about that. But I understand it's entertainment, getting back to entertainment for you, but there's something so much bigger happening, which is really inspiring.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, that's a good, just to, I mean, to keep the focus on why you're doing what you're doing is the people and the kids and those stories and what's happening in their lives. We're gonna close with one question. You're obviously, we're cheering you guys on. Go Broncos.
Yeah, appreciate that.
But I'm also a hook 'em horns.
I know.
So
I know.
Coach Sarkisian, what do you think he's gonna do?
Huge fan. I'm a huge fan. Their quarterback was #1 in the country. I mean, he was at Alabama last year.
Right.
In pass efficiency, ours was #2.
Awesome.
And we're very similar. I've been studying him. I've always looked up to him as a play caller and as an offensive guy, and I'm an offensive guy. And literally, I've spent the last 2 months studying because they run the same stuff we do. They got some different athletes than we do, but the schemes are the same. There's a couple things I think he does better than us. We're both in the top 10 in pretty much every offensive category in the country. But it's a growth mentality. Like, I want to be one.
Absolutely.
You know, my quarterback was 2. Well, Mac Jones is going to the league, so hopefully Caleb can become one. But I've been studying him, and I think the biggest thing, if he goes in there and continues to grow the people, you know, he's going to put them in good positions schematically as a coach. He's going to do his job. I hope his mission is also to grow people and get them bigger, faster, stronger. And if he does that. I mean, it's Texas. They're gonna have play. They're gonna. I mean, it's one of those programs. It's one of those programs that can.
But
can
the
really,
like going back to that focus, if you got to keep your.
If he does it right, he has the ability.
Man,
because there'll be a lot of this. There'll be a lot of
that noise in that program can
Right.
eat you up and chew you out, spit you out. So
he better not react.
Yeah.
Keep responding. And
good.
he'll be in good shape.
guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. If you have comments or questions, feel free to leave those. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Remember, you're not perfect. Nobody is, but you can grow. You can develop. So keep doing that. Keep growing, keep learning, and keep leaning in. And go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Hey, there you go.
I love it.